That's super new. And what was your initial feeling when you had got that message from them?
Okay, so like, and I went into like a pretty long story time about this one, but it's pretty funny because like I got a message from the UK office. So obviously, and I don't know if you guys know this, but like Gymshark UK and Gymshark US, I think like they're the same company, but they have two separate offices, like two separate like teams of people doing things. And
Mhm.
it was right after the Miami trip because I went with Will because they were doing a bunch of stuff there, and it was pretty like it was a pretty normal trip. Like we just shot a couple vlogs or whatever, nothing major. And I think what ended up happening was after there's a video of this strength test where people were doing a bunch of shoulder presses, which it went super viral. And what ended up happening was I wanted to try the weight at the end, and it just so happened to be more than Chris Bumstead. So like people that think that that was like contrived, I was just really curious. Sorry, I'm gonna try that again.
No, you're good. You're good.
Uh, people that think that was like a setup thing, it wasn't. I was just curious, and people didn't want to stop rolling the camera. But anyways, through that, I think some people were like, "Oh, I wonder who this person is," because they left my Instagram handle, and I get this message from somebody who's saying like, "Oh, I'm from Gymshark. We have some upcoming projects or whatever." And my first thought was like, "Oh, this is a crypto scam." It's like how many messages you get of somebody like using somewhat relative information of stuff that like they know about you, but then they also like will be like, oh, like we have these projects with Gymshark, like just follow this link and put your email address and social insurance number. And it'll be totally fine. So my first
All we
thought
need
was
is your credit card and your social security.
exactly. So and a couple of the athletes in Canada are my friends and stuff like that. So I asked them like, "Oh, do you know who this person is?" And I think because she was from the UK team, they're like, "No, I've never heard of this person." So I'm like, "What's going on here?" So I asked the
Yeah.
athlete manager that we were working with while we were in Miami, and he's like, "Oh yeah, no, that's like the lead producer in the UK office.
Let's
Like she
go.
runs all of our commercial production. You should probably answer that." And I'm like,
Jeez.
well, I'm a wipe the egg off my face and answer that, and that was pretty much how that whole thing happened. And then like a couple phone calls later, they were like, "Hey, we want you to shoot this campaign. We have an athlete. We have an athlete. Obviously, like we'll tell you a little bit later. He has products that are coming out as kind of a collaboration thing. And what's your availability? Can you get to Los Angeles in a couple weeks?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I always said, why would I not do that? And then one of the contingencies that I asked about was what were the what was the red tape around having like behind the scenes and stuff like that? Because I know a lot of high end commercials kind of frown upon breaking things down, and they're like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, no, it should be fine," and whatnot. And the way that I kind of presented it, and you'll kind of see it later on, is that I actually interviewed the guy that edited it, so I didn't edit it. So that was all an in-house production. I just shot it and did the lighting,
Got
did
it.
the cinematography, and the editor actually took care of it. But in my kind of thinking, I'm like, well, if I want to produce the most value, it makes a lot of sense, especially from a brand like Gymshark, if you're creative in the fitness space, to go and like ask these people what they're looking for and like what's important to them. So we
Mhm.
actually set up a whole interview. It's about an hour and a half long. It should come out in the next couple of weeks. But that's kind of the way that I framed it to Gymshark, in a way that it not necessarily just highlights myself, but it also gives value back to them because sometimes people just see these videos with these high profile athletes and they don't necessarily know like how it happens and they kind of just see it at face value like, oh, that's just a 30-second video, and they continue on with their
Mhm.
day. And then you really dive in, and we really dive into like how much that's not the case and how many things and how many people it has to see, how many hoops it has to jump through, the copywriters, the like the planning, the shot planning. We were on a month of phone calls for like a 30-second ish spot, right? So all of those things that kind of go into
Wow.
it, so that's going to be in another video. But yeah, that's how the whole Gymshark thing happened.